Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And FYI, when I released this, I did not record it this day. I had some stuff come up this week, so this was actually recorded ahead of time. So some bomb dropped. That's why I'm not talking about it today. So heads up to you. But I want to talk about the internet today. And I think this is an important one because I think it's becoming more and more compartmentalized. And I think the big driver of this is politics. Now, what got me thinking about this was an article in The Verge by Jay Peters talking about Blue Sky. Now, if you're not familiar with Blue Sky, this is essentially like Twitter. It was founded by Jack Dorsey, who, also founded Twitter. And essentially, they are starting to grow. And I think this is an important one that we need to understand because Blue Sky has gained more than 700,000 new users essentially in the past week or so, and they now have more than 14.5 million users total. That's according to Blue Sky's COO Rose Wang. Now you're thinking, okay, well, there's hundreds of millions of users on Twitter, their Twitter or X as they're calling it now, et cetera. Not to mention, Facebook. So 14.5 million isn't a lot, but we're going to get into that because the majority of those new users on that decentralized social networking platform known as Blue Sky are from the United States. Now, the app is currently number 2 in terms of the US App Store for social media apps, and it's only behind Threads by Meta, meaning Twitter is not in the top 1 or 2. Essentially, it's being outclassed by Threads, owned by Facebook mogul Mark Zuckerberg, and Blue Sky, owned by Twitter's original founder, Jack Dorsey. Now, this platform has seen a lot of growth. Since October 24th, Blue Sky said it had 13 million users, meaning they've gone up 1.5 million users in a very short amount of time, which is a significant thing for them. Now, after Twitter/X's recent announcement that, and this is insane, they would let blocked users still see posts from the person that blocked them, Blue Sky said they added 500,000 new users in that day, meaning people are looking at Twitter and X and seeing where it's going, think it's negative, and they're jumping ship. And of course, Blue Sky also has Jack Dorsey involved, which, if you're an old guard on the Twitter side, you'd think, okay, well, Jack's going to do it a heck of a lot better than Elon in terms of content moderation, all these kinds of things. And so with that, the results of the US presidential election could be part of this new influx of users. If you recall, or you've been living under a rock and maybe you don't know, former President Trump is now President-elect Trump beating Harris. Many people thought that was not going to happen. Obviously, Trump supporters did. Harris supporters didn't, right? But here we are. And so people may be looking to use a platform that's not owned by Elon Musk, who is a big Donald Trump supporter. He called himself Dark MAGA. He was up on stage with Trump. And I like to say, for the record, I've said it a million times, cybersecurity is agnostic to politics, but we're not immune from it. So I don't care if you love or hate Trump. That's not the point of this. And so on some of it could be like Taylor Swift fans, for example. They might be looking for a new platform, due to basically the increasing anger and all of that on X. Now, I've seen that myself. My For You feed went from this nicely curated, news sources around the world to I'm like, who is this guy and why is he angrily spouting off, some pretty angry things, not to mention an increase in disinformation. Elon Musk cut the trust and safety teams on Twitter/X. And so disinformation is rampant. There's a whole lot of issues that I think, basically Twitter has. I've written articles on this. I've talked about this before, so I'm not re-adjudicating that. So let's go back to Blue Sky because they're also becoming an increasingly better app as well, which obviously is attracting more users. They've recently added features like pin posts, support for posting videos, the ability to send DMs. Again, this is a new platform that Dorsey's been spinning up. And so essentially it's becoming more in line with what you would expect from an actual Twitter, right? Now, they're also allowing users to basically custom create and select feeds to follow, and allows for building starter packs to quickly find posters who you may be familiar with, etc., etc. Now, by virtue of that, I also have Blue Sky. It's the same as my Twitter handle. If you go to Blue Sky at NickAESP, you can follow me there as well. And quite frankly, my new curated feed where I was basically what I had on Twitter with all of the news sources from around the globe, the ones that are there on Blue Sky, and that's pretty much most of them at this point, my feed is once again a curated section of news. I tend to now go to Blue Sky when I'm looking for news around the world more so than I do Twitter, because I don't get like one, let's say, legitimate news source and then five people that I've never heard of spouting off like angrily on things like that, And so I think this is one of those things. But if you look at essentially what's happening here, what we're doing is we are stratifying across social media, and obviously Blue Sky isn't the first to do it. This has been happening for years, but you can see that essentially, when you're starting with like the monolithic services of social networking that became social media, like Facebook, when Facebook was essentially the only game in town, and then they bought their competitors like Instagram, et cetera, which is kind of a tangent on competition. Now what we're seeing is, well, oh, I'm on the right, I'm on the left, therefore I'm going to go to this platform or that platform. I think ultimately that is detrimental. One, because disinformation that really confirms confirmation bias can spread more easily on let's say, a site that is more politically biased one way or the other. It doesn't matter if it's left or right. It simply can happen. The other side of it is we're not talking to each other. And I think that's one of the big problems that we've had in technology, specifically on the social media, social networking aspects of what has essentially come out of Internet 2.0. We don't basically go to church or synagogue or temple or whatever you believe in. We're not congregating personally as well. Kids come home from school, they're not going and hanging out with their friends. Statistically speaking, they're playing Xbox, they're going online, video games, all that kind of stuff, whatever it is, but they're not getting together. And so by virtue of that, if we're not getting together, even online, to, let's say, have an open discussion, that's a problem. Now, I have always said that Twitter is where civility goes to die. That is true for the most part on social media. And if you look at essentially what free speech meant, at least from the United States standpoint, to the founding fathers, is it wasn't about saying any stupid, crazy, off-the-wall thing that you wanted. It was about informed people, essentially with knowledge on a subject that could fundamentally disagree, whether it's on how the government is run, whether it's on another topic, and have an open and honest debate on that. It's basically devolved into name calling. Everybody's an idiot. The first time I ever posted on Twitter, I got basically dragged into a fight between two people when I had just made a generic comment on something, and they were swearing at each other, all this kind of stuff. And my first thought was, how on earth does anybody use this site? That's what's happening. And if there's no any kind of, let's say, moderation, and for the record, it's not a free speech issue when it's a private entity. The First Amendment applies to basically our right to free speech against the federal government itself. And so Twitter has every right to censor, as does any other platform, whether you like it or not. It's just the way it works. It's a private organization. In the same way, my business can discriminate against those I don't want to work with, in terms of like prospective clients. And that's not like a race thing or anything else. It's simply maybe the business is not a good fit for my business, or maybe I get a bad sense that it's going to be a difficult client. You have all of these different kinds of things, but Twitter and Blue Sky and Facebook have that ability. The problem is they're not really doing it. And as a result of it, it turns off essentially those where the concentration is you're in the minority. And so if you think about it, Twitter has shifted decidedly right on the political spectrum. It's just fact. Again, don't care what you believe in politics. This is simply what we've seen, and the research bears that out. Now, there's not necessarily anything inherently right or wrong about that, but by virtue of that, if you've got two sides angrily yelling at each other on a platform, then why wouldn't the left leave and go to a Blue Sky or something like that? In the same way that the right left Facebook initially and said, oh, we're going to go to Parler, right? And Parler was there until essentially, basically, they got not quite shut down, but they went bankrupt as a result of the aftermath of January 6, 2021. They had an open API that was essentially hacked and everything was exfiltrated, turned over to the FBI. They basically lost their shirt, and so Parler went under. Now you have Donald Trump, for example, or President-elect Trump, with his Truth Social platform that only attracts his followers and obviously researchers or reporters that are reporting on Donald Trump and his followers. So by virtue of that, that's a very niche platform, which is why it doesn't perform well, because it only basically is for a subset of users that really just want to hear everything, let's say, Donald Trump says every single day, where, I think the majority of us just, get it in the news, at least the aspects of it we want to hear. So these are the things that I think are causing longitudinal issues. But if we have, as an example, all of the right using Twitter and all of the left using Blue Sky, then when are we coming together? When we've got ecosystems that are constantly feeding essentially our information to the users, the confirmation bias confirms it, and it continues to not quite radicalize us, but push us farther out. And there will be a subset that will be radicalized as a result on both sides. So I think this is a problem that we've got longitudinally. There's no easy issues to this. But the point is if we can't openly talk and discuss about issues, topics, even those that are uncomfortable, and come at it from an honest positional, argument, all is lost. And that has been going downhill for quite some time. Twitter, as I've mentioned before, is where civility goes to die. And now, essentially, I think Elon Musk has dropped a supercharger into that. So we'll see what happens here. But obviously, this is going to be a big issue and all of that. So I'll leave it at that. And we'll see what happens. But it doesn't bode well for the future if we can't get together. So here we are. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.